A guy who has gotten hit in the head too many times and still keeps going back for more for some reason is Andy No, editor-at-large at the Post Millennial, and you can find him at thepostmillennial.com. Andy, how are you?
Hi, Glenn. Thanks for having me on again.
Sure. So, so let's start in Seattle, Andy. Last night, the police abandoned, I think it's the 3rd precinct. That's up on Capitol Hill, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And they have taken 6 blocks back for the people. And they have Black Lives Matter and Antifa have put roadblocks up, and they are patrolling those 6 blocks. Tell me what is going on.
So while most of the violent protests have been now under control in most parts of the U.S., it's still going quite strong in the Pacific Northwest, which has been a relative stronghold of far left and Antifa. And so 2 days ago, this part of the Capitol Hill area of Seattle has been occupied by hundreds of far-left extremists, and police have been engaging with them daily in terms of using crowd control for a number of days now, and there was all this backlash from politicians accusing police of excessive force. So seems like some strings are pulled, and a decision was made for police to pull back completely, literally. They actually abandoned the East Precinct in Seattle by boarding up the window, taking out all sensitive and dangerous items inside, boarded it up and left. And the far-left extremists have claimed victory and now have set up barricades around this 6-block square of city, claiming it. They're calling it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. So they're actually naming their own territory. And when you go in, it says you are now leaving the USA. And it's really, as I'm describing it, it sounds really silly in a way, right? It's people seemingly cosplaying and almost like reliving childhood, building their own forts. But there are armed people involved. If you look at all the social media accounts in various Antifa groups, they're calling for armed comrades to come and act as security at these barriers. So it's a very potentially explosive situation when and if city officials finally choose to respond, because as always, these situations are going to devolve into a serious health and public safety crisis, because there's still people who live in those 6 blocks and there are businesses there who are now under siege.
That's what I wanted to ask you. What about the citizens? What about the businesses in those blocks? Are they just left now to fend for themselves? And what's happening to them?
They are left to fend for themselves. This reminds me of what happened in 2018 when Antifa and other far-left extremists seized a neighborhood in Southwest Portland nearby the ICE facility. For 5 weeks, the mayor and those in city council allowed this to happen. And I did a story for the Wall Street Journal at that time. Those who lived there were absolutely terrorized by this literal occupying force, and the threshold for police to respond was literally in a life-death matter. So short of that, you're not going to get any help. And it seems like because politicians think what these extremists are doing are righteous, they're allowing them not only to riot, loot, and be violent, but to actually occupy territory.
Okay, so this is Black Lives Matter. That's the ones who've taken the Capitol Hill, right?
They chant because of Black Lives Matter, they write it all over. I would call these anarchist communists. This is really the
Antifa?
more violent. Yes.
Okay.
It's somewhat of a nebulous group of people. But if you look at the accounts that are promoting this, and you look at the graffiti that they have messaging, it's the Antifa ideology that's being espoused.
And what is that, Andy? For people who don't know, and I'd like you to explain Black Lives Matter. I mean, they've changed their website and softened the language. But if you are reading with a critical eye, you know exactly what they're saying. And it's terrifying. Can you explain who these groups are and what they want?
So Black Lives Matter has always, the last time in 2016-15, when they had become central in media cycle, they had already put out their list of demands, and it's very clear based on what they desire, as well as the worldview openly espoused by its three co-founders. They're a Marxist organization. They openly call for the abolishment of police, abolishment of capitalism. It's a communist movement in the vein of, I would say, it has much to do with sort of those black revolutionary far left extremists of the 60s and 70s, which is why they championed
Black Panthers.
Correct, and figures like Assata Shakur. There's a big reason why she's their hero. As for Antifa ideology, Antifa is an anarchist communist ideology, and they have some things in common with Black Lives Matter in that they want to see the destruction of the U.S. Capitalism. But so for now, they sort of cross-pollinate with one another because they see one another as sort of comrades. I think ultimately, if they were to succeed in gaining more power, you're going to see more of these rifts appear because Black Lives Matter are not necessarily calling for anarchy. They're not against hierarchy, from what I can tell. They just want themselves at the top of the power, whereas Antifa claim to create a non-hierarchical world. So both groups are advocating for a certain type of utopia, which in order for it to exist, the United States would have to cease to exist.
This is the same kind of thing that happened in Paris in 1968. This is the Paris 68 riots, where they are putting up their own little compounds and communes, and that's what they really want. It's really a balkanization of the United States. And, I mean, you know, the insurrection law, everybody's fighting against it, but that's what this is. These are people that want to break away from the United States of America and want to destroy the United States of America. I don't think you could be any more clear. Andy, have you heard of the revolutionary abolitionist movement?
Yes, that's what BLM is part of. It's people who say that by their advocacy for abolishing prisons is actually abolishing slavery. It's this way of looking at, and that's how they're able to sort of mainstream their message, convince enough people on the left that prisons operate essentially as a slavery institutions for against Black Americans to today.
We're doing a special tonight at 9 o'clock. I'm going through all these groups and what they want. And as we began to look into the revolutionary abolitionist movement, as you say, that's a lot of where BLM comes from. And it's actually a Marxist Kurdish revolution in northern Syria that they are basing this plan off of. When you see the groups and our politicians, and Attorney General Barr says that he's looking for the connections and the funders right now. They're not going after the small guys at this point. They want to understand the whole system. How many names do you think that we know as citizens are going to go under and be in trouble when all is exposed here?
Well, I think so many of the people that have been arrested, as far as I know, there hasn't really been a deep dive investigation into what they actually believe on all the various groups and networks they may be linked to. The United States First Amendment does give wide protections for people to have extremist beliefs and whatnot, and, in contrast to, for example, in some Western European countries where involvement with such organizations is actually proscribed, completely banned. I think I can't put a number out because it's with these anonymous sort of memberships, it can be nearly impossible to determine for sure if somebody's actually involved in one of the organizations. I mean, the Project Veritas video that came out last week about Rose City Antifa was very eye-opening because they were actually able to infiltrate one of the formal Antifa organizations and demonstrate the level of organization and radicalization that happens on a local level. It remains to be seen what these links are internationally. I know there are international links. There's a commune in northern Syria called Rojava that many Antifa and other far-left extremists have gone to get weapons training in, and they come back to Western Europe and America, and they're trying to replicate that sort of revolutionary autonomous zone model in various American cities.
Andy, I don't know why you do what you do, but I'm glad you do it. And I urge you to stay safe. Andy is with the postmillennial.com. Postmillennial.com. He's the editor at large there and has been following these guys for a very long time and knows who they are. He's writing a book that's coming out next year about their game plan, and couldn't come out at a better time. We need it as soon as we can. Andy, thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.